Hi guys, I have another video for you. I wanted to try something a little different with this silhouette image. I don't think I've done this before on a card. If I did, I can't remember. Maybe I did with the, nope, don't think I ever did. Not with a silhouette image. Okay, so we are using a brand new release from Blue Night Rubber Stamps. This is called Grace and Peace. And I already did one with Pan Pastels, which kind of mimics the packaging. So I'll have a video link for that for you guys to see. But today I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to do kind of like the distress ink. I guess you call it like the mush technique. I've done it with distress oxides. I don't think I've ever tried it with distress inks. And I wanted to have like this evening sky look. So I'm going to use some of this Marco's paper chrome coat cover, which is a high glossy paper. I would imagine that you could use any kind of glossy paper. I'm going to try this. Like I said, this technique, the smush technique, I usually do with distress oxides and it's no problem. So let's try it with distress inks. I do kind of want a moon, so let me do a mask. The mask may not work because the ink kind of saturates underneath. We'll try. So I just have some Inka-Dinka-Doo masking paper here. I just cut out my little circle, punch out a little circle. Like I said, the moon may not even work because the ink might saturate under the paper. But this is why I do these things. I try and experiment for you guys. I'll put it up here in the corner. Okay. So now what we do is we just lay down the different colors. And this is a really bright blue. I should have gotten my other blue. This one's Blueprint Sketch. This one's Dusty Concord. I am going to grab the Chip Sapphire. Hold on. Put some of that in there. And then we'll see how that comes out. And if we need to add black, we'll add black. And we're just going to spray it down with some water. Now the difference between the distress oxides and regular distress ink is these colors will kind of mix together. With the distress oxides, they don't really mix. They kind of work independently of each other. Where these will do a little bit of mixing. And because this is not a hybrid kind of pigment ink, it's all a dye ink, it's going to be, I think, a little more muted. Not like pastel muted, but just not as saturated and layered like the pigment inks do. So I'm going to get the heat tool and heat this up a little bit. Oh, where's my heat tool? Oh, I wasn't even ready with the heat tool. My bad. Sorry about that, guys. So just take a second. Just unplugged itself. Okay, this looks good, but I really wanted it to be much darker. So I'm going to go in and add some more of those colors. Trying to grab some of that darker blue in there. There we go. All right, I'm going to clean my surface off real quick. I'm going to add some new colors. I'm just going to set that aside. add some more of the chipped sapphire. And I'm also going to throw in some black soot now. I don't want too much of the black, just a little bit of that. And we're gonna spray that down. Okay, now we're gonna dip into that. I'm gonna try to just get this mostly on the edges, a little less in the middle. All right, this is really getting where I want it to look now. All right, let's dry this. One more pass here, and we'll have enough colors of ink on there and enough different layers that we can get by with this being a night sky for our little giraffe. I really like this kind of, it's almost like a mixed media kind of look. Now, when your paper starts to curl up, of course, that's going to happen. I try not to put too much saturation of water on there because it is going to curl up. Dry the back of it with your heat tool and it will flatten it out a little bit. Okay, that in its thing. All right, now let's stamp this. Let's see if our moon worked the way I wanted it to. Still a little damp in the corners. All right, it worked. I didn't think that was gonna work. That came out pretty cool. Okay, that's great. We're gonna leave that alone. So I should probably go in with a little bit of gray, just so it's not a plain white circle in there. But I'm gonna leave it alone for now. Okay, so then we have our stamp already mounted in our mini Misty. I'm just gonna stick this down in the corner. And I do have a little bit of that double stick Ranger tape in there. I'm gonna put a little magnet in the corner here just because we do a little bit of curling up. So this should help. Okay, and I think this time, instead of using my normal VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, I'm going to try the Brutus Monroe Detail Raven ink because this is a permanent ink. And it's more of just a little bit stronger ink instead of being like the VersaFine ink. The VersaFine ink kind of sits on the top just because we are using a glossy paper. I think this ink will saturate a little easier, but we'll find out here in a second. So I'm gonna make sure my paper is tucked all the way in the bottom corner. Okay, let's see how this goes. probably going to take a couple of layers of ink and stamping. Okay, that actually is not too bad. I'm going to quick hit it with the heat tool. Oh yeah, that ink definitely dries a lot faster. When the ink is wet, and that happens a lot of times with glossy paper, and you go to stamp over it again, it actually lifts the ink off of the glossy paper. So you want to, you know, have an ink that's going to dry pretty quickly, and that's the first time I've used the detail ink on glossy paper, and that turned out pretty good. So I'm going to go in with second layer. We want this to be super black and dark because this is silhouette. I do like how that background came out. Let's try it again. What I might end up doing is putting a little embossing powder on there just to give it a little bit of a raised effect. Looking pretty good. I'm going to clean my stamp and do one more inking here. Really neat. I didn't know if this was going to work or not, so just wanted to experiment because I've always used the Distress Oxide inks, and I like because they don't blend and they really layer well. But you get this kind of chalky finish because it's the Distress Oxide inks. And they dry back and have like this little bit of a white oxidized look to them. So the regular Distress inks, I knew I was going to be using blues and purples and a little bit of black, so I wasn't really worried about them mixing because they're not, they're colors that would work well together instead of being opposite colors. You know, I wouldn't want to put like red and green together. So I knew if these mixed together, it wasn't going to look too bad. And you really want to use some kind of a stamp positioning tool like the Misty because it does help you stamp over and over again, especially with these silhouette images, and stay in the same position. I'm going to dry this again. Looks really, really cool. I'm going to do one more on our giraffes and on our grass. And then that should be our last time inking. Give that extra second to transfer over. Okay, I think that looks really good. Take that off of there. I'm going to dry it again. Okay, so before we move on to the next step, you want to make sure that this is completely dry. I have not tried using the Distress Microglaze on this ink, so I'm going to just test it off in the corner down here. If I find that the ink smudges, I will not continue with this, but if it doesn't smudge, then we'll be able to lock this in. Just grab a fresh sponge here. And I'm thinking because it's a permanent ink, it shouldn't reactivate with the Distress Microglaze, but we'll see. So I'm going to just try in the little corner here. You just get a very little bit. You don't need a whole bunch. Okay, cross your fingers. It doesn't look like it's reactivating or moving. Okay, we're going to keep moving here. Keep working. Now, don't forget, I have a little bit of black soot ink in the background. So the black that you see, it's not from the ink. It's actually, or from the stamping, it's from the black soot ink that we had in the background. And what this Distress Microglaze is going to do is basically lock in all of this color, give a protective barrier on our cardstock here. But also it's going to, you'll see when we buff it, it's really going to make those background distress inks pop. I'm really glad that that did not move. That looks pretty good. So then all we do is buff it, and to buff it we just take a paper towel. You want to make sure your ink is completely dry before you do that, because if the ink is not dry, it will smudge. And it's just like, you know, buffing anything else, your cars, your shoes, anything that you polish. You put a layer of the polish on, and then you take it off. And what's left is this beautiful, glossy, shiny background. And we got a little bit of black ink coming off of there. That might be from the ink. I might have to be careful here. I'm going to work around my little stamped images so I don't smudge there. All right, and then I'll go into the stamped images carefully. I'm really happy with that. What do you guys think? So, real difference between using the pan pastels, doing kind of this sunset scene, and doing, just changing it up and doing this, I call it the smush technique with the distress inks. And it really has this kind of evening feel to it. Really mixed media look. And then, like I said, what I like to do with my silhouette images is matte them onto black matte. Let me see here. I'll cut these down a little bit. I'll mount them onto black matte and then put them on a card. Okay. Let me know which technique you like better. If you like the pan pastels with the sunrise, sunset look, or if you like, I'm going to call it the smush technique with the distress inks. Let me know down below in the comments. If you have any questions about anything I use, I will link everything in the description box for you. If you like this video, I appreciate your thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, click on the little bubble that's going to come in the bottom right-hand corner. That'll help you get subscribed, and then you can get notifications every time I post a new video. Until next time, keep on stamping. Bye, guys.